Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Admissions Pathway Roundtable. My name is Dave Darby. I'm the Assistant Head of Enrollment at Lakefield College School. I'm going to be your host tonight for the Q&A. If anyone on this call is completely new to LCS, I'll provide just a few fun facts. So LCS is a coeducational high school. Every year we welcome roughly 375 students. Amazing to think that they join us from over 40 countries. This year we have 44 countries and 8 provinces and a territory, which is amazing. We were just talking about, how we're spoiled by our campus, and we really are. We're located on one of the largest lakefront properties among any Canadian boarding school. And on top of the beautiful lakefront, the school has over 300 acres of fields and forests for students and staff to enjoy. And as much as possible, we try to get outside every single day. We have a saying that's called outdoors every day. If I were to put everything in a nutshell, LCS is known for offering really engaging and balanced curriculum that focuses on the education of the whole person and emphasizes 3 pretty key things. So community-minded leadership and character education, the important benefits of being outdoors every day, and providing really authentic real-world learning experiences that help students develop confidence and independence. I'm also going to provide you just with a quick overview of what to expect in the next 60 minutes. Everyone here is a special guest, but we're joined by 3 LCS graduates that are going to be answering questions, and one is also a current parent. So I'll be posing questions to them shortly. And we want to make sure that we answer any of your specific questions. So throughout today's roundtable, please feel free to use the chat box and enter any questions that you may have, and they'll be addressed following the formal Q&A. And depending on how intimate a group we have, we may just be able to take one another off mute. But just prior to beginning the Q&A, I'll ask just quickly, Paula, Max, and Cody, if you could introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit, just briefly, about your connection to Lakefield.
Hi, my name is Paula, and I am a current parent of Griffin, who's a grade 10 boarder at Lakefield. We come from Pickering, Ontario, and as mentioned, I also went to the school myself. I graduated in '99, and I was a day student.
Great, thanks, Paula.
I'll go next. My name is Maxwell McEachran. I'm an alumni of 2013. And I am now back at the school as an associate faculty. So I'm a Don in Cooper House, one of the residences here. And I also work with the outdoor education program.
Great, thanks, Matt. Cody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cody. I am also an alum, class of 2012. And I work at LCS. I work in the LCS Foundation. And I do a lot of the alumni relations. I also was a Don a few years ago in Lower Colbrook as well. Yeah, pleasure to be here with y'all.
So Paula, as a grad yourself and a current parent, you're going to be answering questions as a current parent today. And I'm wondering if we can start, if you can provide us a bit of an overview of why did you originally choose LCS for Griffin?
Sure. Having an involved grade 7, 8 means a lot of driving here and there to keep them busy and focused. And I wanted to find a place that he could do all his favorite things at one location. So Lakefield started to fit that mold. But I think specifically I would call why I chose Lakefield, I call it a Boy Scout experience in a global village. And I'll elaborate on that a bit. I want my kids to do things like a Boy Scout. And Scouting is an Ontario-based program, or Canada, or perhaps the world, but where the kids are learning in an outdoor environment and they're working on skills like collaboration, teamwork, survival, and preparation for life. But perhaps one of the downfall of participating in that program in Ontario is you're isolated to a rural environment with only like-minded people. The difference of Lakefield is you're getting a scouting experience outdoors every day, building on leadership and growth, but with different perspectives and different people. And that's where the global village piece comes in. That's really important to me. My kid is going to be on teams with, working on projects with people from around the world. And that brings in that perspectives that further pushes him into his own growth and independence.
It is really amazing. Sometimes it just feels like a stat on the page, like 44 different countries represented, but it's incredible to think students from 44 different countries are sharing their experiences and their global perspectives. I'm wondering, in which ways is the school what you expected, and in which ways is it not?
I think probably you just mentioned it. I felt it was well advertised, the international diversity that I would see, and I'm pleased that that occurred. His roommate was from a faraway country. He was invited to Cayman Islands for March break. I brought him back 2 days later when the pandemic hit. So that held up to what expected. The things that I didn't expect but appreciated would definitely be the response to the pandemic. That was interesting to see a school go through. It felt immediate that the kids were transitioned into engaging Zoom classes and extracurricular activities. Griffin was cooking for us, taking pictures, submitting them, going on walks with friends on the phone. And so he was really engaged from the moment that that happened, with excellent communication from the school on the plans that they're putting in place with the goal of safely getting kids back to campus. We were totally included along the way. So that really impressed me, only to be outdone by what it looks like in September coming back. Kids quarantined in a hotel for 14 days. And then this cohorting process. I've heard this word, I'm an elementary teacher myself. A bubble in an elementary classroom in Pickering is not a bubble. Those kids are exposed to their friends in other areas and their parents. But the cohort of the residential bubble that was created required the kids to be masked for 14 days, even within their residence. And then when successful, they were able to bubble together. And if they removed their mask, they were reset to 0, and that happened. And so to have consequences and specific rules and us communicated along the way, unexpected and appreciated.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I love the fact that Griffin appreciated, and as a parent you appreciated when we went remote, that there was that commitment to not just academics, but community and co-curriculars too. That was pretty awesome. What do you think is the biggest impact so far? I know Griffin still has a few years ahead of him, but the biggest impact the school's had on him?
I think I've taught him, or Lakefield's taught him, that it's the type of place that the more you give, the more you get back. The more you join, the more you feel, and so on. So with that in mind, and him carrying that value with him, it would definitely be leadership and independence that he grew in, living in a residential environment and being responsible for waking up, getting to places on time, completing his homework. Those are things that you've seen huge maturity in, so well supported by the residential staff, but a grade 9 boy can do this. It wasn't a problem. So independent growth, the leadership growth he had, that one example would be like the decision-making skills that he's developed. So Griffin was a rep hockey player for the last 8 years. That was our life. And he goes to Lakefield and he phones us and says, I might play basketball. We were so surprised. It was like, you're going to Lakefield, you're going to play hockey. He said, no, but I've spoken with the coach and I've talked to some of the seniors and I've looked at the schedule and I've evaluated this and this and this and this, and I'm going to choose basketball. And to watch this 13, 14-year-old go through that decision-making is not something I would have seen in grade 8. And I don't know that I would have seen it if he stayed here. There was just a new level of responsibility and decision-making skills that he had to start, and then he did. And then that further matured to him working with admissions and wanting to do tours and feeling really great if he was a part of sharing that experience with potential new students. Or he went for grade rep and got it. So he got actual leadership teachings through that program. So I'd say leadership and independent growth.
And I love hearing that. And I've heard it a number of times from families where they say, you know, we sent off a boy in grade 9 and I'm watching him become a man. And it's just kind of cool to see that process of maturity unravel. I'm going to ask you to put yourself into Griffin's mind a little bit. What would he have to say about the school you think, if he were sitting here with us?
He'd probably admit that it can be cold. And so his line is, there's no such thing as cold, but there is such thing as inappropriate clothing. So I have committed to buying the best winter boots and the best winter jacket, and then it's not a problem. And then he's totally happy to be doing the outdoor education program year round and choosing sports that are outside because he's prepared. And so he would admit that he's felt cold, but now he knows how to dress well, and then it's not an issue, and he enjoys his experiences outside. He is an academic. He likes learning a lot, and he would say his classes are challenging, like they've given him a good challenge, but in a fun way. So that teacher becomes like, he has the one teacher he feels like is a mom, and a one teacher that's a camp counselor, and one that's a little too hard on him, but that also pushes him in really great ways. So a nice balance of staff that care for him, and he feels it. And finally, he'd probably admit that before going, he was intimidated by the elite nature of an independent school. But I think by the first night, that was gone when you feel included.
Sense of belonging, that's amazing. Speaking of intimidation, I think this next question is intimidating because it limits you to 3 words. So if the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be in only 3 words? And there's the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to do 6, but break it up. But the first 3 would be your kindergarten teacher. So I want everyone to imagine what their kindergarten teacher was like, because that's a feeling that I have about Lakefield, and Griffin does too. That kindergarten teacher is always happy. They're totally inclusive of everyone. And they have that ability to pull out an individual strength in each person. So as mentioned, I'm an alumni, and by the time I met my husband, my youngest brother was graduating from Lakefield. So my husband, who I talked about this place to, was able to attend the closing graduation ceremony of my youngest brother. And I had talked about this place and he wasn't really getting it. But when he left that closing ceremony, his line to me was, wow, that place knows how to make everyone feel good. In previous graduation ceremonies, you see the same names, that same academic kid, that same athletic kid getting award after award after award. This one felt like there was something for everyone. And that's both because there's a range of talents, but there's opportunities for those talents to be nurtured and appreciated so that each kid feels like they have something to contribute. And that's how the community is created. So happy, inclusive, and ability to pull out strength. Your kindergarten teacher.
You just made me think of Mrs. Chambers, and that brought a smile to my face, wherever she may be today. Just final question for you, Paula. Wondering how you would describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community.
I think the values have been shared as community values. So I don't even need to think of them. There's something that are presented and shared. I've already heard of us speak about outdoors every day. That's a value of the school. You know that you want your child to be outside and learn not just about, but in the environment that they have. And when you've got a campus like Lakefield, you want them to be outside. It's hard leaving when you go visit your child because you're like, I just want to take a walk around the waterfront one more time. It's a beautiful place. And it was actually mentioned, I think, last week in Anne-Marie's communication out to parents that the school's really working on that concept of we before me. And I don't really think you need to work on it. That's clear, but it's good that each new kid and the current group feels it, that a value is that we think of each other before ourselves and what happens when we do that and the community that can be created.
Yeah, an inclusive community. That's great. Thank you so much, Paula.
You're welcome.
I'm going to apologize because you could just as easily answer the next set of questions, but we're going to look towards Cody and Max to provide some perspective as graduates from the school. And we'll see who ends up going first. But first question is, what did you appreciate the most looking back? What did you appreciate the most about the school during your time at Lakefield? And how has that perspective possibly changed?
I'll go first here, Max. I think what I appreciated most about Lakefield, to be frank, I appreciated a lot. And I don't know if I really understood this as well at the time as I do now, is just how many people genuinely cared about my well-being. On a day-to-day basis, how many people were invested in bringing out the best in me? How many people saw things in myself that I didn't necessarily see? There's just, these people, they made it their goal for me to be the best person that I could be. They didn't have some picture in their mind of what that was. It came from me, and I really appreciated that. And has my perspective changed now that I work there? No. All it's done is it made me realize how much work goes into that. How much the staff and faculty really care about each individual student. It's remarkable to see. It's remarkable to be on the other end of, and my perspective hasn't changed. I just have a whole new appreciation for it.
Thanks, Cody. Max?
That I see Griffin every day, and it's been cool to see him back at the start of grade 9 coming into outdoor ed class, and then to see him now and how much he's grown. It's been pretty cool. But yeah, to answer the question, just to echo Cody as well, like I definitely appreciate Lakefield a lot more now since I've graduated than I probably did when I was a student. Yeah, I just really truly feel as if like since I've graduated, Lakefield has been that gift that keeps on giving. And I know that sounds kind of corny, but it really is. I've been included in this massive network of alumni that has been really supportive. People who didn't even know who I was that have wanted to connect with me, and just because I went to Lakefield, and that's been really cool. But I was also incredibly lucky because I came to Lakefield on an extremely generous bursary. And at first, when I arrived at Lakefield, I don't think I appreciated that much. And I know actually Leslie was a Dawn when I was a student here, and she could probably echo that. But as I moved on at Lakefield, I appreciated it a lot more, and I took advantage of Africa. And then the big trip was I was lucky to go to the Yukon for a canoe expedition, which eventually led me to working up in the Northwest Territories, and it was just really incredible. So, and then now as a staff, I came back partly because I love this place, but also because I really wanted to give back to the place that gave me so much. So.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. I might look back to you, Cody, with the next question. Wondering what, to the best of your knowledge, most differentiates the school from others?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I think it's the outdoors piece. I having traveled to lots of schools and playing sports at a lot, I've never seen a place that has such a brilliant campus. And how the outdoors is it's a value. It's really not just something that we take advantage of. It's in the spirit of what we do. I distinctly remember being a student, and you take for granted, but we'd be in biology class, and then we'd all get up and we'd go outside and we'd just stand in the forest, and then we'd have our biology lesson there, or we'd have our math class there. Like, it wasn't just the outdoor ed. Nature is really incorporated into the curriculum in a lot of different ways. So yeah, that outdoors as a value, not just kind of an accessory, I think was huge, and I think it stands, Lakefield stands apart because of it.
That's good.
Yeah, and again, I'll echo the same thing. During my time at Lakefield, we had this saying called the Lakefield difference. And it wasn't any kind of specific particular difference that everyone would talk about. It was kind of this like abstract idea that was up to interpretation, because every single student or staff member kind of felt like their Lakefield difference was with something different, something personal. Because obviously there's like physical things, like you've probably seen photos of the campus and how beautiful everything. We're close to the waterfront, and the fact that we have small class sizes, like those physical things that we can touch. There's also those intangible things, like the culture that we really have here at the school, and how much, like Cody was saying, the staff really care about everyone. And like I've had advisors who remembered what my favorite chocolate bar is, and they'll bring it to an advisor meeting. Things like that. It just, like, the culture around here was to really support everyone. So yeah, I would say that would be my Lakefield difference for sure.
Yeah, amazing that you can feel that too. Thanks, Max. So I'm going to unleash the same question on you, Cody and Max, that I put to Paula. And this is the 3-word question. So if the school were to represent a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words? You're in the hot seat first here, Cody.
Oh, really? Okay. 3 words. I would say outgoing, adventurous, and I think the most important is kind. You know, it's such an important part of the community, and it's so present in every interaction that, yeah, you know, we're a fun, outgoing place, and we like to, you know, challenge people, and that's all well and good, but we do it in such a spirit of kindness that the intentions are always good. And yeah, outgoing, adventurous, and kind would be my 3.
Great. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking now that I think Mike Arsenault would be that person that just really is Lakefield. And Paul, I don't know if you had Mike Arsenault. And Leslie, do you know how many years he's been at the school?
I think he's 25, 26, if not more.
I think it's above 30.
Is it above 30 now?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Incredible. And I mean, so he was obviously here when I was a student. And then last year I was lucky enough to go on a canoe trip with him in the Algonquin expedition, which is the grade 12 expedition. And amazing that he's been here this long, and he is constantly curious about how to make his classroom better. And every day he wakes up and he wants to be a better teacher than the day before. And I just think that he really epitomizes that in everybody. And there's so many teachers here that are exactly that. They wake up in the morning and really think, how can I make my classroom better? And I think that is like really cool that really at Lakefield, there is no complacency here every day. It's just a little one step forward. And yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and amazing that we have 4 people on the call that were taught by Mike Arsenault. He's a pretty special guy. This is probably challenging for a different reason, but if you had to choose something, what one thing do you think you change about the school to improve it for the better?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to answer something like that with a place you love, but I think it's also acknowledging we can always all be better. You know, in my work with alumni, one of the things that I get to do is have these kinds of conversations a lot. I get to sit and reminisce and hear what people loved about the school and you know, areas for improvement that they see too. And I think one of the rewarding things that I've seen be a part of, and I would like to see continue further, is over the summer, the school launched a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, just to really think about these ideas within the context of our school, where we are at now, ways in which we're failing, and ways in which we can succeed in the future. And the fact that the school's already addressing that, it to me speaks volumes. And I would just love to see that work continue. I would love to see, you know, that committee come with recommendations, and us to be a school that really embodies it in a way that's not just symbolic, but is really integral to the way we operate. And you know, diversity, equity, inclusion is a broad term, and I think we need to think about it broadly too. And I think we need to challenge ourselves in ways that are perhaps uncomfortable at times. But the fact that the school is already doing it, is taking those steps, is great. I would love to see that continue further.
Thanks, Cody.
It's funny, Cody, that we have very similar answers. Yeah, you're right. It's a very challenging question to think like, oh, what would you change? And it's a bit of a trick question. But again, like I was just thinking about alumni as well, from the 70s and 90s who were like, the school looks so much different now than it did back then. But, if we weren't open to change, that we wouldn't have a co-ed school, and we would be missing out on so many incredible people, and we wouldn't have the same resources we have today. So I'm lucky that my cousin is in grade 12 here, and I know that the school is that much better for her than it was for me back in 2013. And then when my other cousins arrive, I just hope that she feels even more comfortable being at the school. And same with that diversity, equity, inclusion. I really look forward to seeing how the school grows with all of that.
Great, thanks, Max. A bit of a fun question. What do you think families would find most surprising about Lakefield?
I think, and Max is actually the perfect person to have on this call because I think he could really speak to this. I think how involved everyone is in everything. It's almost like no one holds a single job title at Lakefield. There's this kind of, it's not even an expectation. It's just, everybody feels this sense of, they want to have their hands in everything. They want to be a part. So, people are coaches, they're teachers, they're advisors, they're tutors, they're running partners. You kind of wear all of these different hats, and everybody does it in a way that is with such ease. At least it appears. Max could probably tell me it's much more challenging than it seems. But yeah, that's just such a huge part of Lakefield to me, is that, everybody loves being a part of everything and wants to give back in all these ways. And I think it's because they get a lot of pleasure out of it.
That's great. Thanks, Cody. Oh, we lost Max. We'll have to come back. I know he's having some technical issues. But Cody, put yourself back kind of as a student yourself, or having been a graduate and gone through the system. What advice would you give to a student or students that are just entering the school?
I would give the advice that Paula gave to Griffin, which is that the more that you give to a place like Lakefield, the more you will give out, the more that you will get out of it. Opportunity is everywhere here. It is incumbent upon the student to make the most of it. Your teachers will go to the nth degree to make sure that you're successful, but it's up to you to take the responsibility and really own it for yourself. And the students that do reap the rewards for the rest of their lives. I remember going in as a grade 9 kid, and actually I started in grade 7 back in the day, but I remember when I started, it's super natural to be really shy, and you don't necessarily want to get involved too much. And just really quickly, I remember some of the older students kind of bringing me in and saying, look, this is important. You got to really buy in and go to everything, be a part of as much as you possibly can. And it means you're really busy, but it also means that you get the most out of it that you possibly can. One of the things that always strikes me about kind of the spirit of Lakefield is that you're encouraged to do everything. I went in as a guy that loved sports, and I ended up doing a whole whackload of school plays, and I loved every minute of it, and I still got to be on the hockey team at the same time. So my advice to a student would be, Lakefield's going to offer you a lot. Take as much of it as you possibly can.
That's great. Thanks, Cody. And I know, Max, we lost you there. Little technical issue, but you came back quickly. So we'll do a double header. What would families find the most surprising about the school, do you think? And then that advice piece, what would you say to students just entering the school?
Yeah, interesting you asked, because I was talking to a parent not long ago about what they kind of thought of versus what they actually got out of Lakefield. And what they said to me was that they were surprised at how I don't know if Cody touched on this because I didn't get to hear him, but how supportive all the students were of each other. And she didn't hear too much of like bullying and stuff that was happening at the school. And she's like, I'm not sure if I'm out of touch or if I'm naive. But I would probably say that no, she wasn't being naive, because bullies don't really last long here at Lakefield. It's a very supportive community, and Lakefield, like the Lakefield students, really want to have that supportive feeling here, that community. We're all part of these residential houses, and that typical high school bully just doesn't last long because they don't last in a supportive community. So I thought that was interesting that she had said that, and I had to think about it for a second. It's like, yeah, actually, we are pretty lucky that the students that are here want to be here, which is really cool.
For sure.
And sorry, what was the second question?
The second question was, what advice for a student that's entering the school?
Oh, advice. I think what I tell my boys in Cooper House every day is to just take a deep breath. Just a deep breath, because there's a lot going on here. And I see them running a million miles a minute, running up and down the hallways. And taking a deep breath is also a bit of me like trying to manage them, but it's also to look around at the environment that they're in, because it goes by quickly. And there's so many incredible opportunities here. And trying to really take advantage of everything that the school has to offer is awesome. Like I was saying before, I felt like it was just a few years ago when my cousin was 7 years old, and it's like, she's got a lot of years before she even applies to Lakefield. Well, she's graduating in 6 months. Like, it happens quickly. So yeah, take a deep breath. There's a lot of beautiful things on this campus. The leaves are turning colors right now. It's quite beautiful right now. So yeah, just take a deep breath.
Yeah, appreciate the world around you. That's great, thank you. So we've had a few questions come in from people that have joined us, which is fantastic. Some of them are admissions related. So one is, how is a Global Village principal affected by COVID? Are international students allowed to come to Lakefield? We are incredibly fortunate that we were able to welcome back the vast majority of our international students. And this is because most of our returning students had their study permit and travel documentation approved before March 18th. And that's a super important date, because anyone that had those documents approved prior to March 18th were allowed to enter the country. So there's quite a few that were able to join us. We currently have 36 students that are learning remotely. And they're facing some travel restrictions. The IRCC provided some amazing news just recently, and they've shared an update that on October 20th, students associated with any schools that are labeled or on a list called a designated learning institution, when they have their study documentation, they can enter the country. So Lakefield submitted all of the necessary documents, and we've actually had our plans approved by a number of sources. So we're just waiting for that final stamp. And as soon as we have that, we'll be on it's called the DLI list. So we'll be able to welcome all those students that have their travel documentation in order. The unfortunate thing is that COVID has slowed the processing of study permits and visas. So it's painful because we have so many students that just want to be here so badly. So this is a really, really good sign. And hopefully we'll be able to welcome those final few remote students as soon as possible.
But I must acknowledge Lakefield's ability to include remote students, because that's not what it's looking like in the public system. So could I don't know, I'm just going by from what Griffin's saying, but he's having lab partners from different countries and iPads set up within small groups, and those people are part of the class. It's not like things are posted for them to do later. They are having direct instruction and inclusion in groups. It's amazing.
It's super cool. I mean, there's a major focus, and Cody, Max, and Les, feel free to jump in, but there is that commitment to community. So they are 100% a part of the experience, even if they're not on campus. And that extends to co-curriculars too, which is cool. I mean, it's different, but the fact that there is that emphasis that it is as close as possible to that Lakefield experience without physically being here in person.
Yeah, as an example, so I'm an advisor, and I've got one of my advisees who started remote, and he's flying in this week, and he'll do his quarantine with the school, and then he'll join us on campus. And just been able to chat with him, he feels very much a part of it. You know, he's like, remote learning is challenging. I definitely really want to come to campus, but he's really grateful for how included he's been. He joins all of our house meetings via Zoom, and so he's definitely eager to get onto campus. But I think he's had a good remote experience thus far.
Yeah, how are you finding it in the house, Max? I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. So Garrett Hart, who is our head of house, he's a little bit technologically, impaired, and it's kind of funny watching him like walk around with a laptop, zooming the other students in, like, hey, walking by their room that they all have set up for them, and it's actually quite funny, and they get a good laugh out of it. So yeah, in the house, it's pretty neat.
We won't share that recording with Garrett. That's funny. So we have a question, and I'm wondering, Paula, whether you might be able to speak to this as a current parent. And it's wondering how challenging the curriculum is. And there's more to it. It says, I know that currently in the TDSB, there's such a focus on equity and inclusion. There's very little focus on fundamentals such as language skills and numeracy. And then there's, so maybe I'll stop there, and there's two parts to the question, but sure. I wonder if you can speak to how challenging the curriculum is.
Yeah. As I mentioned, it is a good challenge. Griffin comes from a gifted program. So he was in a gifted school from grade 4 to 8, and he's certainly feeling challenged. I hope that answer is okay. There's certainly lots of support if a challenging curriculum is too challenging, like there would be ways to get help, but it's fast paced, it's hands-on. It's a great, I would definitely say, language and numeracy based program. The equity piece is being included. That's super important to a kid like Griffin. My husband's from Cameroon. Griffin's Black, and he wants to see that included in the curriculum. And I think Lakefield is, as Cody mentioned, growing in ways to include that. But I wouldn't move away from how prepared you are for various university level courses. It is a very rich curriculum. Anybody else expand on that or
yeah, well, I'm wondering, Cody or Max, just even in the house at night, kind of what you see in terms of workload. And I mean, both of you guys could kind of speak to where you went to university, where some of your friends went to school.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So I would say, it is a challenging curriculum. I was probably a fairly academic kid, but definitely not top of the class in any way. And I felt challenged in really important ways when I was a student, and I was encouraged to take a wide variety of classes, and nobody really let me off the hook, which I think was important. No one let me really slack. There was, I was always kind of pushed to be on task. And I would say, just talking to, my friends, my classmates who I went with, we all went to university. We all kind of scattered around and went to different places. I did an undergrad at McGill in the humanities, and regardless of what program they went into, whether it's medicine or law, there's this kind of fundamental preparedness that they felt Lakefield had provided them. Absolutely, that's curriculum based. They felt technically like they were able to accomplish whatever the school had set out for them, but it also gave them really important, what I would probably call like soft skills. And I think the biggest one for me was time management. There is a lot going on, as Max said, and you do have a lot of schoolwork to juggle, and the expectation is that you do juggle it. But when you do it in an environment like Lakefield and you're supported in that way, you come out of it really capable and really feeling like whatever challenge, university or a job is going to bring you, that you have the skills, but both hard and soft skills, that you're prepared for it. So I know our students acknowledge at times that there's a lot of work, and absolutely there is, but it's done in an environment where, you know, the ultimate goal is their success, both while they're at Lakefield and once they leave.
I'm wondering, Max, maybe you could just briefly introduce the concept of Grove time and how it's used, because we've heard that, you know, there is challenge, there is support. What does that support look like during the academic day?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Grove time. Well, Grove is the nickname for Lakefield College School, and it's the supportive time that teachers give during the lunch hour. So every day, the students get an hour and a half for lunch, and then with COVID, they have a very specific time to eat lunch, and then the rest of that time is given for teachers that basically like open office hours for the students to come in, book that time, and have that one-on-one with the teacher. And also with the new 90-minute classes that we have, it gives the teachers and students so much more time during that class time to do a lot more one-on-one. So the class sizes are small for COVID reasons, but also because we have so many incredible teachers and lots of teachers that can support. And in the 90 minutes, both from what I've heard, the teachers and the students have really felt that they've had a lot more time one-on-one with those teachers. And then if they need extra time, they can go to Grove time at lunch and really get that help. And then they also have study at night. So from 7 till 8:45 in their houses, they'll have that time in the house to do some work. Most of the heads of houses are teachers. Their associate faculty are also teachers, so they can have that time as well. And then some guys will work in the common room together to work on projects and stuff. And yeah, like you said, like these guys are in like a academically challenging environment. Like Cody said, a lot of what Lakefield has to offer is balance, is learning how to balance your time. So knowing when to get your work done so that you can go to that spirit event on Friday night where they're playing dodgeball, or they're playing the catch a nuka rod in the field, which is a favorite. So all these different activities. So they're learning to get their work done so they have time to do that free time as well, finding that balance.
Paula?
What I knew that Griffin would have to and want to do all these pieces, but one thing as a parent I didn't understand is how he would remember and know to be where he needed to be. In the 90s, I made lists and had a planner and it went everywhere with me, but I just didn't picture it for my grade 9 boy. But that was all resolved when I learned about EDSB. And it's almost worth Googling to see how amazing this program is, where the kids are seeing exactly where they need to be at what time, but also the parents are seeing that. So every day I know if Griffin was in class, I know what homework he has, and I can get super involved if I want to, or I can release that for him to look after. But there is a sort of central online place where they can keep track of all these things. So it makes it possible to do this balance that we are hoping that they take part in.
That's great. And then kind of the follow-up here, I wish I had an exact stat, but it's essentially, do any of your teachers have master's degrees, professional backgrounds in their subject areas? Absolutely, yes. I'm not sure how many have their doctorates, but I can think of 3 offhand, possibly more. I don't know, Les, if you want to jump in, but definitely masters. There's really the idea of really being a lifelong learner. Something that was really amazing during COVID as schools were switching to remote. We're part of something called the Global Online Academy. So we're one of only 3 schools in all of Canada that's part of this global consortium of top schools that provides a collaborative online learning environment. And every single one of our teachers, not even being asked to, but wanted to sign up for their workshops. Which is pretty amazing. So they're entering this new virtual world with all of these new skills, and they're hungry for it. I'm not in the classroom because I'm in admissions, but within admissions, the professional development opportunities have been incredible. Last year, I just finished a course through the University of Southern California, which was amazing, just to continue to learn and improve and share that knowledge. I'm looking at you a little bit here, Les. I don't know if you have kind of any more insight into I mean, I love the fact that our art teachers are artists, and they're constantly building their craft. There's a question here, do we have a string program? Our music teachers are musicians, and incredibly passionate. So yes to the strings program, and bringing it alive through things like our rock choir, taking it to that next level. And I don't know if anyone here has any kind of intimate experience with our strings program and can speak to it in finer detail.
We also have a record label that's starting up this year with Mr. Bemrose, which is pretty cool. Brought in a professional producer to start Rove Records.
Yeah, and so one of the things that the school did when we went remote is that we offered, I think it was close to 30 different, they were called certificates. So there are these 10-hour modules that students could take, and they could earn a leadership certificate, essentially. And the pretty amazing thing about this is that worldwide, there was concern over student motivation. We had over 500 registrations for these programs. And I'm mentioning it because it wasn't necessarily strings in a classical sense, but it was open to community members. And community, by community, I mean global community. You could be around the world and take part in this program. And my wife and two little girls who are 11 and 9 were both with Jeff Bemrose, learning how to play the ukulele and the guitar. So just amazing. And that's just this is something that our teachers volunteered to do because their passion is kind of spilling over, and they want to share that with the community. So that's pretty cool. And there's Leslie is our hard number person in admission, so you can critique me on this. This year, Max mentioned we have even smaller class sizes. We intentionally shrunk our school. So last year we were 382 students, and this year we set a target of 360, which allowed us to go from an average class size of 15 to 12. And that allows us to make sure that we're adhering to all of the social distancing protocols. And because of that, we did shrink our boarding population a little bit. So we have 117 day, which is actually a few more day, and I'm nailing it. I see Leslie nodding, and 245 boarders. But to put that in perspective, we typically could have as many as 275, 280 boarders. And we actually had 30 students this year that would have joined us internationally, but they've deferred. So we're super excited to welcome them next year. And that essentially is that piece of the boarding program that we're looking to welcome again, and hoping that COVID won't still be with us. But if it is still with us, there's amazing lessons learned throughout the year. And we mentioned earlier about the cohorting and how great that's been and how responsible our students have been. We say selfless is safest. Yeah, you need to make sure that you're taking care of the community and taking care of yourself. We have, in keeping with finding a school that is a right fit for your child, what type of student would you say is Lakefield best suited? I'd love to hear Paula, Max, or Cody. What?
Yeah, I would say a joiner. And in grade 9, it's less cool to be a joiner in a regular school, but here there's structured time to join something. So it's not like, are you going to join? It's what are you going to join? So the choices have things such as athletics or individual sports or arts. There's a variety, but I think the person needs to be a joiner. And I, even though the value is outdoors every day, I don't think you have to come to it knowing how important that is. I don't think you have to love the outdoors. That might be a stretch, because I think once you're there and you see new ways to be outdoors, you begin to feel and believe that. So I'm just going to stick with the joiner.
I wonder, Max, you've told me an amazing story about not really being an outdoorsy person and kind of how that process led you to the Yukon. I wonder if you can briefly share that.
Yes, I sort of alluded to it earlier, but when I first arrived at Lakefield, I certainly wasn't someone who would get involved with everything. But just as I was in outdoor education class, I remember my very first time in a canoe, and I just hated it. I was like, I can't believe you're sticking me in this boat. I don't know how to do a J-stroke. I was just so frustrated. I was going around in circles. My teachers at the time were, very patient with me. And anyways, so I ended up finding some patience through the years and finding a joy for the canoe. And then eventually in my grade 11 year, I was lucky enough to join the Irving expedition, which is always a canoe trip in Northern Canada in the territories. And that's when my love for paddling, the outdoors, the industry really came together. And I ended up working up in the Northwest Territories for a canoe expedition company after that. But yeah, it was pretty funny because the teacher that actually taught me how to canoe in the first place was with me on that trip many years later. So it came full circle.
Amazing. Cody, any thoughts on kind of what type of student you think is best suited for Lakefield?
It's interesting. I genuinely think that there's not one type of kid that succeeds best at Lakefield. I think one of Lakefield's strengths is that it kind of brings out the best in every type of kid. But I do think that a student that's willing to kind of better understand themselves, but also be open to challenging themselves. Just as Max alluded to his discomfort in getting into the canoe, I think Lakefield is best suited for the type of student that will get in the canoe anyway, and be open to the idea that they might end up loving canoeing, as an example. But just being open to the idea that Lakefield is going to be an incredible place for you. Lakefield's going to challenge you with the goal of kind of bringing out the best version of yourself. If you're open to that, if you're receptive to that idea, I think you're going to thrive at Lakefield.
Great. Thank you. We're approaching 6 o'clock. We have 4 minutes. I don't know if there's any final questions or any final comments that Paula, Max, or Cody, I'm really putting you on the spot. I think we're fortunate to have heard your stories today. I always love these conversations every time we have a chance to have them. Oftentimes we do these types of Zoom calls we do at the school on a monthly basis with hundreds and hundreds of parents. So all of our current parents, and Paula alluded to the fact that she felt very well informed as to the school's plan, and that was particularly important for the school, and seeking feedback from our parents and our students because there's just so much uncertainty in the world. So important that everyone's feeling safe and comfortable and confident in what the year has ahead. And I'm mentioning this because we have these calls every month, and we do them according to time zone, and I'm often a moderator like I am now. And when I say any final questions, usually there might be one that slides in. But any of our guests, you're also welcome to take yourself off mute or even show your video. Our parents that are here, we'd love to say hi. I totally understand if you're not in a position to.
David, I was just going to ask you, are you now at Lakefield campus right now?
I am at Lakefield campus, yes.
At the back, I see some students. I think is that a house there, or is that one of the residences? Or? That's
actually looking into one of the classrooms.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm so tempted to walk you around with my computer. I get motion sickness though.
Yes.
But I'm talk about being spoiled. I'm looking out another window and I can see the sun setting. The lake is, a couple hundred meters away. I see students sitting outdoors as often as possible.
I think I want to join. I think I want to go back to high school now and have this wonderful setting, It's just so amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. And Jillian and Erica, thank you. Hopefully you found this informative. For everyone on the call, definitely reach out to the school. I think what I'll do is I can put in the admissions email. You'll also be able to get it through the pathway. Our Kids has everything. but we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to answer more questions. Hopefully this was a great introduction to the school and we can continue the conversation. So to everyone that joined us, have a fantastic night, stay safe and be well.